Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. So for January, we're doing something fun and exciting and having a wonderful special person come and talk to us about all things wellness and health and all that kind of stuff. So my favorite, I'm trying to think of what to say because you've been so many things. One of my favorite people just in general, I guess I should say, is Semalee Bilberry. So do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi. So my name is Semalee Bilberry, and I have known Rachel for a long time since we were teaching little toddlers together.
I know.
And
It's at least, I would say 10 years.
Yeah, probably about that. And I used to homeschool, and now I do not. I have kids that are getting older, and some of them are the rest are left into public school at this point. So that left me with what's next for me now that my entire world does not revolve around my children anymore. So who am I when I'm not a homeschooling mom? And so I had some health issues and some things that happened over the last few years. And over the course of time, I wasn't getting answers from conventional doctors and things like that. And just was getting a whole lot of, sorry, kid, that's rough, tough shake type of answers from them. And just decided that I rebuke that answer. I'm not going to take that answer. And so I started really learning about nutrition and learning about health and learning about functional testing and decided, okay, I guess this is my next chapter, my next phase. So went to school through functional diagnostic nutrition and
That's
graduated. Yes. And so people ask me, what is your title officially? Well, it's functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, because that's really easy to say. Or I'm a board certified holistic health practitioner, which is so much easier to say.
Yeah.
And then I also do hair tissue mineral analysis as well. And so what I normally tell people is I have a whole bunch of letters, which basically just mean that I got frustrated. I went to school because I like to learn. I'm a lifelong learner. That's just the way it is. And I like to share the information that I have and help other people to take charge of their own lives too. So that's what I do.
That's great. Awesome. That's a lovely little spiel. How many times have you done this? Okay, so I don't know where you want to start with what you do, but I find the hair and mineral testing fascinating. So can you explain to us what that is?
Yeah.
And who would need to do that kind of stuff? So
yeah, I actually run a hair tissue mineral analysis test on every single client that I take as a one-to-one client. It's a pretty inexpensive test, which is great. That's one thing that's really super helpful because functional testing can be kind of expensive, you know? So I include it in all of my packages because you can get so many different information from the hair tissue mineral analysis. And some of the things that you can learn from that is by looking at different minerals and their ratios to each other, you can tell if somebody's thyroid is not functioning properly, if it's either sluggish or it's functioning too quickly. Same with the adrenals. You can tell what their metabolic rate is. Are they a fast metabolizer or a slow metabolizer? Would they be better off to eat more fats or more carbs? We can kind of figure that out through the hair tissue mineral analysis. We can also actually, interestingly, find out if somebody's had like a really intense emotional trauma. Yeah. It will show up on your hair tissue mineral analysis. Yes. Because when that happens, people will often build up calcium in their body. The body uses calcium as a protective shell. And so they can develop what's called a calcium shell, where they just have all this excess calcium in their body that's trying to protect them from these emotions. And so as we start to bring down that calcium, sometimes they have to deal with the emotions that are now
that's fascinating.
Coming out from the box, you know? Yeah. So just super interesting things. And then just from a health perspective, different things we can learn about your hormones. We can see between your zinc and your copper ratio. We can see if you may be estrogen dominant or progesterone or testosterone dominant in men. So it gives us a whole lot of information. A lot of the time we take that and use that as a jumping off point. Okay, I'm seeing some imbalances here. So this would be a test that we would want to run next to just kind of confirm before we do treatments. Some things we can treat based on that.
Wow. Yeah. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so who would need to, well, I mean, you said everybody you do, or everyone, all of your clients, you run this test, but like who would want to maybe pursue that, think about doing it?
Most of the people that end up coming to me, they typically have been to lots of different doctors and gotten a lot of the answers of you're fine. A lot of the things that happen in the conventional model is you have blood work run or whatever, and they use what's called a lab range. And the doctor will look at the lab range and they will say, okay, well, you're within range, so therefore you're fine. And basically what that means is you're not diagnosable. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean there's not a problem. It just means that you don't meet the criteria for a diagnosis. Now, if you can catch said problem before you get to the diagnosable issue, then a lot of the times it's a lot easier to turn around. And a lot of people are really sick for a long time before they actually reach mm-hmm. that criteria. So I have people that have been dealing with many different doctors over many different years and just haven't really gotten anywhere. And now they're at a point where they're like, look, I'm tired of the lab ranges because functional ranges are a lot tighter. Yeah. The way that lab ranges are created is they take the mean of the entire population. And so when you think about it, people that are getting these labs done usually are sick. And so they're taking the mean of the sick people. Whereas on functional labs, we're taking the mean of healthier people. And so it's a tighter range. And so we want you more in that I'm healthy range, not the I'm not sick enough to be diagnosed range type of thing. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of most of the time it's people who have been through the ringer already and they just have now decided I'm done with that and I'm going to take things into my own hands. And I know it's going to cost money, but I'm going to do it because I have to at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So how did you find this like type of medicine? Because you said you were not getting.
Yeah. So I had, there's a couple of things that have happened. For me personally, I had a sinus infection that started following the death of a friend of mine. I've decided I'm allergic to death. That can't happen anymore. But I had a sinus infection that lasted literally 18 months long. Ooh, and also it was in the middle of COVID, which is the perfect time to have a sinus infection. Yeah. You know, lots of doctors wanted to see me and stuff. Not really, but so, but over that time I was, seeing doctors and I even had sinus surgery. And shortly after the sinus surgery, the sinus infection came back again. And let me tell you, if you're considering sinus surgery, you should reconsider. It was horrible. It was one of the most painful things I've ever done in my life. It was awful. I wish I had never done it. But anyways, I digress. So after that, I ended up at this chiropractor that did some functional medicine also. And a lot of chiropractors will do some functional medicine as well. So I ended up with her through like a wellness seminar that I went to. And I was telling her about my sinus infection and things like that. And she put me on a couple of different supplements and gave me some dietary recommendations, which of course I had been asking my sinus doctor, could I be allergic to something? Could it be a sensitivity? Like, why in the world is this still going on? And he was like, I don't know. No, I don't think so. No, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, kid, Mm-hmm. And so she gave me some dietary recommendations. She took me off gluten and dairy and sugar for 90 days and then gave me a couple of supplements. And within 30 days, my sinus infection was gone. And so this thing had been going on for over 18 months. So I was like, wow, okay, there's really something here to this. And then that's what got me. I already was kind of health minded because I'm an oily girl. I love essential oils and I'm in the homeschool community. Most of us are a little bit crunchy anyways, right. So, I mean, I already kind of looked over things, but I also took it kind of like a grain of salt. Like I can handle, these minimal things, but when it comes to real things, then I've got to go to the doctor. Well, in this case, the doctor just wasn't doing anything. Mm-hmm. So at that, I was like, I need to know more because this is ridiculous that in 30 days I was feeling this much better. And since then, I've incorporated things back into my life. I don't believe in eliminating anything for forever from your life unless you have a true allergy, Right. But for a time, it was a big deal and it made a big difference. And it was definitely worth the time to get my body back into shape and be able to be okay. Now I've been sinus infection free for 2 years, almost 2 years. Every time I start to feel like, oh, I think there's one coming on, I know what to do now. And I just kind of stop it in the tracks, which everybody should be able to do. You shouldn't have to rely on going to the doctor and the doctor really not paying attention to you anyways half the time. And then, we just feel like we have to go to the expert for the answers when there's a lot of answers that are available to us. And I just believe that God created our bodies to heal.
Yeah.
We just have to provide the right environment for our body to do that.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of as far as I'm concerned. And then my son has autism, and same thing. Like anytime that I go to any experts for him, you know, it's just like, sorry, kid, tough break. That's rough, man. You know, and there's just not any help. Like there has to, and I just reject that. He's not going to be, I mean, I'm not saying that his autism is going to like go away, but he's not going to be where he's just unagreeable and difficult to be around and unable to manage himself for the rest of his life. I reject that. No, there has to be, there's something that is causing him to have these issues, and there's got to be ways that we can help him and address what's going on and the imbalances that are happening within his body. So that's in progress, and we've definitely found some things and still going. It's definitely a big tangly web when it comes to autism, but every little step and every little thing that you do takes you that much closer and gets you that much further down the path. So
yeah. Okay, so I was going to ask, and I didn't prep you this, but were there any books or resources that you felt like you read in the beginning that kind of helped, besides, you know, the chiropractor suggesting the stuff? Like, was there any?
I don't know. I did a lot of online searching.
Yeah.
And part of the reason that I decided to go to school is because there's just so much conflicting information out there.
Yes.
Like one thing will tell you this, one thing will tell you that. And it was like, I cannot stop the noise. And so a lot of books are that way too. So you just have to kind of take each thing with a grain of salt and figure out what works best for you. But as far as a book that really got me started on this journey, I can't really think of one.
So let me ask you this then. How do you, because we've talked about, we just had an episode about like theology and stuff like that. So, and finding good resources. Well, that's like totally easy to say if you feel like you are even slightly equipped in it. But I know like for health and wellness stuff, it is overwhelming. And I just saw a reel the other day and it was hysterical. And the guy was like pulling out eggs, and it was like, oh, you can't eat eggs because like whatever. And then it was like pulling out bread, and you can't eat the bread. And like, it's just like, you can find somebody who has like, you shouldn't eat apples. I mean, like it's ridiculous. So how do you feel like you judge, or like what standard do you use to judge? Like, is this person credible or...
Right.
That's a good
well,
question.
Part of the thing is that the health coaching space is unregulated. Like you do not need to be licensed. You do not have to have a certificate. You do not have to have anything at all to say that you are a health coach. Like you literally can say tomorrow, I am now Rachel Jones, health coach extraordinaire, you know, and just act like you know what you're doing, and people will follow you. And that's just the truth of it, unfortunately. And that was another thing that I was running into. And so when I was looking at schools, you mentioned theology. One of the things that I had to look at with schools also was, what is the theology of the school? Because I didn't want to go to a school that was going to take me down a path of things that don't align with my faith. So that was super important.
Yeah, right.
Now, is FDN a Christian school? Definitely not, for sure. But it was very not anything else, right? It was more about the science. This is what it is. So, now when I'm looking to experts, just because I've been in the space, like I know if somebody has an FDNP behind their name, I know what kind of an education they've gone through. And so I know that they're pretty trustworthy because it's a very robust program. So I kind of look at their credentials. Do they have credentials? And have they gone further on from, did they stop at FDNP, or did they then continue to take additional classes? Because those of us who've been through the program know that that's really just the basics. You've got to keep taking classes in order to be able to truly actually serve people, you know? So, looking at credentials is something that is the main thing, because some people just don't. It might be, you know, somebody's grandma who's in her backyard, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but you could have somebody in her backyard with her plants and creating tinctures and then telling you that they're miracle cures, and there may be some truth to what she's saying, but where's the science? You've got to find, there's got to be some way to find the science of what, you know, it has to be backed up somehow.
Yeah. That's good.
Did that answer
because
your question?
because I feel like it's overwhelming.
It is.
And that's why a lot of times, like, I don't know how many like diet things I've tried this year.
Yes.
And it's like, well, this worked for so-and-so, so I should try that. Or I should try this because this worked for so-and-so too. It's like, there's never a lot of...
Well, and I will say, and that was something that I was really, part of the reason that I did functional diagnostic nutrition is I was looking for more direction with that.
Yeah.
And what I got was everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait, that's not the answer I wanted, oh my gosh. But it truly is definitely true. I mean, you notice some people, they respond very well to like a keto style diet, and other people will respond very well to all carbs every day type of thing. I mean, it just, or
who are
your
those?
body.
Yeah, I want to be that person.
Or it could be in different times of their life. As your body changes, then you are going to respond differently. And that's where the hair tissue mineral analysis is fantastic, because it tells us what your metabolic state is. What is your metabolic type? And it's based on your calcium and your phosphorus levels that are within your body. And as those change, it will change how your body reacts with carbs and will react with fats. And so I can look at that and say, you need more carbs and less fat, or you need less, I can look at that. And it's very surprising. A lot of people actually do need more carbs. But keto is all the rage.
Yes. We've been told that carbs are bad.
Yes.
Well, like healthy carbs.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yes, absolutely. Healthy carbs, not.
I hear carbs and I think donuts.
Yes. I'm not saying donuts. I'm not saying French fries. This is not what you need more of, like at all. But healthy carbs for sure. And then also because there's such a craze on the keto and the elimination of all carbs and all of that, we're missing a whole bunch of nutrients, and that's messing up our whole microbiome, because we're not feeding all of the bacteria that are within us, and we need to, because they're really important. There's actually more of them than there are of us. So it's super very important. And all of these elimination diets, I have an issue with, because it's just, is it good to eliminate things for a period of time because it's inflammatory? Absolutely, for sure. Should you limit the types of gluten that you ingest? Absolutely, for sure. Definitely. Like the bread you buy on the shelf, probably not a good idea. But is there a time when gluten is appropriate? Yes, I think so. I do think so.
When is that?
Like if it is sourdough, or it's an ancient grain, or, not what you would buy.
Not highly Walmart. Processed.
Well, see, and I feel like this is the confusing thing. It's like you just said carbs, and you hear gluten and you think, oh, well, gluten is 100% bad all the time.
Right.
Kind of thing. Like these buzzwords that we have.
And a lot of people do feel that way. They feel like there just is no gluten, no good gluten at all. I don't agree with that. I think if you're doing a sourdough type of thing, then I think there's a lot of benefits to sourdough, to the fermentation process. We know that fermented foods are really, really important for our body. Sprouted grains are also very good. We know that is good. Now, my son, who is autistic, he is on a gluten-free diet because gluten causes behaviors for him. It affects him neurologically, and it does affect some people neurologically, because it is one of the only things that will cross your blood-brain barrier. So if you have a problem and you have a leaky gut, you probably have leaky brain. And if you have that going on and you have additional things like autism or whatever, it can cause behavior. So like, I can tell if he's had gluten, it's not good. And I hate being gluten-free with him, but it just is what it is. Like we can see the problem there. There are functional tests that will tell us too. We can look for things within functional tests that tell us, whether you're reacting to gluten or how bad you're reacting, or do you have a leaky gut or not, and what kinds of things do you need to do to help to repair that, and where are you at in that. Another thing that we find is the more that you repair your gut lining, the less food sensitivities you have. So one of my favorite books is, and I give it actually to all of my one-to-one clients, because there are certain things that are foundational for everybody. Anybody who is trying to work on their health and trying to be healthier in general, you want to work on your diet, your rest, your exercise, your stress reduction, and then proper supplementation. So we call that the DRESS system, DRESS. And so in an effort to assist with stress reduction, I send all of my one-to-one clients this book called Breath as Prayer, and it's by Jennifer Tucker. And I just love it because it's you can use it sort of like a devotional. There's a little blip that you read, and then on the next page, there's like a prayer that you would breathe in and say part of the prayer and breathe out and say the other part of the prayer. And so how I use it is I'll read the little blip and then I will usually like do the prayer 7 times because 7 is just such a wonderful number. And so just kind of breathing in, it's just kind of, and breathing is so important to what we do as well, as far as stress reduction and everything. And actually, if you read another book I'm going to talk about, you will learn that when we lose fat, it actually goes out through our breath. We think that it goes out, is excreted other ways. Actually,
so we just start like,
it's actually sort of exploded and out. So breath is super, super important, and breath work is very, very important.
So, and then like, I know we've talked about this too, but like how reading can like lower your stress.
Yes. And one thing that I find a lot with my female clients is we just don't take time for ourselves. Everything is all about the kids. And even when you read, it's all about the kids, or it's all about how to be a better mom or a better wife or whatever. And so I really, really encourage my clients, what about you? What is something that you're interested in? What book are you reading that you just want to read that's fun? And I talk about your podcast too. Like if you need some ideas, then you should totally listen to this podcast because they will give you some ideas and stuff. But because we forget, especially as moms and as our kids are getting older and, like my youngest are in the teenage years and I don't know if I'm coming or going half the time,
Yeah.
And so when we get to that kind of phase, we start to sort of lose ourselves. And when you lose yourself, then you lose sight of lots of things within your body. You lose intuition within your body. You lose all kinds of, purpose and all kinds of things, even as you're doing the work that you think is important.
Right.
There has to be something that is just you, that isn't necessarily connected to all of the other roles that are involved in your life. And so reading is very, very important for that, I think, if you like to read.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
I think reading too is like, it's an easy like thing to do.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
Like, or you can listen to an audiobook.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
yeah, I was going to say that. Like, even if you're just too busy to sit down, which I love to sit down and hold a book in my hands, but it's not always feasible. And so I do a lot of things on audio and listen while I'm doing the dishes or while I'm, moving the laundry in the morning or whatever. Listening to a book is very helpful. And a lot of the times I will actually listen on audio and purchase the book so I can kind of highlight things if I want to. Yeah.
That's what I do.
So I can still get through it, but then I go back and I can, feel it or whatever. I do like to feel the book. But are you guys familiar with Everand? It used to be Scribd or Scribed. I'm sure it's supposed to be Scribed, but I've always said Scribed. And
I've always said Scribed.
Yeah.
There we go. But everybody tells me, no, it's Scribed. It doesn't make any sense for Scribed, but whatever.
Okay.
It has changed to Everand now. It's now called Everand. And I really love it because you pay like $11 a month or something like that. And it's unlimited audiobooks. So you could be listening to several other different times. It's not like with Audible, which I have also. Because, whatever. With Audible, you have to purchase the book. You only have so many credits and blah, 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 blah. And then there's some that you don't have to use credits for. But you have that kind of point system with Audible. With Everand, there's not that. You can just, if it's there, if they have it, you can listen to it. So
interesting.
I used to, I had no idea. I know.
Yeah.
I used to use Scribd. But I think when I used it, there was a cap of like, you could only listen to so many.
Yeah, there's not.
I find the limit on everything because I just figured out. I got so excited about Spotify and how they have all these books.
There's a limit on Spotify?
Okay, so I was so excited because Spotify has audiobooks now. There apparently is a limit.
I didn't even know they had audiobooks.
They made it just for you. They're like, Rachel.
Okay, Rachel's here. We've got to come up with a cap.
Has connected to Spotify and they're like, watch out for this woman.
So there is a limit. You can only listen to 15 hours a month. I know.
They put it in
and like
hours?
I had gotten so excited about all of these books that I went through my Libby app and took off all of my holds because I'm like, they're on Spotify. I don't need to have the holds for the library.
What? Oh, that's
no,
awful.
I know.
And then you blew through them.
I had no idea.
Wow.
So
They're onto
You're
your
probably
game.
the only person who knows this.
well, I did Google because it was like buy more time, and I'm like, what? And so yes, there is a cap of time.
Wow. Well, you should try Everand and then let me know if there's a cap, because I won't know.
If I get there is a cap on Hoopla. Which, did you know that?
I did not know that, but you know that. So
if there is a cap, I will find it.
oh my
Anyways.
Okay. Well, we've come to the end of another episode. Thanks, Semalee, for being here. We're going to do a part 2. And so join us next week for that episode with Semalee. And be sure to like and subscribe and all the things that help our podcast just work in the algorithm, because it's very mysterious, in case y'all didn't know that. So every like, every comment really helps us out. All right, guys, we'll catch you on the next episode. Bye.
Are you gonna say yay for reading?
Yay for reading.